let me tell you who we are and who we are not. So that's just kind of, I did this last Sunday night. Let me tell you first of all who we are not. The guy that is helping us in Enjoy Services is a guy named Jeff Benefield. He pastored a church. It was his home church, and in 22 years they did 6 of these campaigns. So they would do a 3-year campaign, and then when they would finish that campaign and they would build a new building, and they would, get, $5 million, $10 million, $15 million for this new building. And then 6 months later, they would start another one. And then they did that 22 years, and in 22 years they did 6 of those. And so what I said to the group last Sunday night was, that's not us. That's not who we are. I'm not saying that bad, like, well, they're bad for doing that. No, it's just who they are. That just makes them who they are. But that's not who we are. We're not the church that's constantly pushing. Come on, we got to do the next thing. We got to do the next thing. And I kind of used the idea of I did a ride. The dogs on the sleds and the mushers. Come on, let's go. That's not who we are. It doesn't make that church bad. It's just not who we are. Well, let me tell you who we are. In 1999, our old sanctuary burned to the ground, and we built, this is the sanctuary that we built. We then renovated the 51 building. We gutted that 51 building and made it children's ministry. We also renovated the 89 building when we built this sanctuary. We purchased the property over there, and that's where our youth now have Sunday school and mainly Wednesday nights. We purchased the property behind us here. We're building more parking, as you can see. We're almost done with that. We purchased this property over here. So, we're not the church that is constantly push. But when we see a challenge, and when we see a vision for the next vision that God has given to us, then we always step up to the plate. And that's just who First Baptist Church is. And we will step up to the plate when it comes to this next vision. Now, how do these things happen? Well, we start talking about things. And the way this one happened was Dustin Hornbuckle and Lance Joyner and Deacons meeting said, guys, we need to really start thinking about our youth ministry. Because we're running out of space up there. We're literally in that old building. It's falling apart, and we don't have enough space. So, well, the deacons started talking about, all right, and the next thing you know, Roy Bryant, who was the chair of deacons at that particular time, we put the long-range planning committee together. Linda Glasgow agreed to chair that committee, and in the last almost 2 years, the long-range planning committee has identified 4 basic needs that we have at First Baptist Church, looking for the next 50 years. 4 basic needs. Our first priority is youth. Not that we make youth our main priority, but when it comes to space, we are out of it. And so, what are we going to do? Our first priority is, what are we going to do with our youth ministry? What are we going to, facilities are we going to build in order to house our exciting, growing youth ministry? And then children's ministry. We want to identify children's ministry over the next 30, 40, 50 years. Senior adults. And, next Sunday when we do have Sunday school again, most of our senior adults will have to go upstairs in order to go to Sunday school. So we want to, at some point, we want to be able to get our senior adults downstairs. And the only way we're going to do that is if we move our children out of downstairs to a new facility so that we can move senior adults downstairs. So those are 4. And then Anchor Adventures, one of the greatest preschools in not just Marshall County, but in the state of Alabama. So we've identified those 4 basic needs that we want to deal with. So all that leads real quickly to this. Building by faith, our vision, purpose, vision, and generosity. And we want, the illustration that I keep using is trying to get you on the bus. We know we're going to Birmingham. There's many different ways to go to Birmingham, but we're trying right now to get as many people in our church family to join us and start praying about your role as far as building by faith is concerned. We make you this promise. Last thing I want to say. We will not guilt you, manipulate you, strong arm you. We will not do any of those things in order to try to get money out of you as an individual or as a family here at First Baptist Church. That's just not how we do it. We're going to tell you about the vision. We're going to present the vision. We're going to show you what the vision is. And then if you join us, great. We want you to be on the bus. We want you to be a part of it, prayerful, financial, physical, in every way possible. We want everybody as possible to join us in this vision, but we're not going to try to manipulate or strong arm or guilt anybody to do anything. Do you know that the greatest motivators in the world over the past thousands of years that we've existed, since Adam and Eve, the greatest motivators are fear and guilt. If you will take just a moment tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock and watch any news, I don't care what it is, liberal or conservative, it doesn't matter. Their primary thing is fear and guilt. They will try to scare you out of your mind, and they will try to guilt you into their position. And that's the way it is in the world we live in. That's the way it is in business. That's the way it is in sports. That's the way it is in almost everything. Fear and guilt motivate people. And somebody might say, well, we don't do that at First Baptist Church, but it does work. Oh yeah, it does work. There's a reason why news media will do it tomorrow. There's a reason why sports teams will use fear and guilt tomorrow. Because it works. It works, and it works very well. Here's what I'm saying. It works for all of the wrong reasons. Oh, it does work. Churches have guilted and manipulated people into giving money since the day the first church was opened. And because it works. And here's what I'm saying. It works, though, for all of the wrong reasons. We want you on the bus with us, going to this vision that God has given to us to provide for First Baptist Church for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And we want you to do that for all of the right reasons. Because our vision says we want to know Christ and we want to make him known. Period. And that's what we will do. And so we're not going to use any of those other tactics to get you on this bus. All right? You do what you feel like the Lord's calling you and wanting you to do. And we want you to do that for all of the right reasons. All right. So you start praying about, thinking about your role in joining us in this vision. All right, Linda, you come. Linda has worked incredibly hard for this. So I'm thankful for Linda and all that he's done.
I'm not 1030. And so our church has been growing in 380 in 2019. In 2020, obviously there's only 6 or 8 here most Sundays because of the pandemic. But then we came back in 21 with 247, 22 we had 342 average, 23 416, 24 422, 25 we're on track for 431. In 2024 we had a high attendance of 889 one Sunday, that was Easter, and 332 was the low. And our 2025 Easter this year was 911. So if we could get everybody that comes on Christmas and Easter here every Sunday, we'd have a house full, and we might have some great times together. 815 worship averages about 314, or 73% of the attendance for worship happens in first service. Our children's church and nursery takes about 65 of those people out of this room. They're in children's church today during worship, so it's not 314 in here, but you take the 314 minus the 65, that's about 250 people or so that are in here. 1030 worship averages about 117 people a Sunday, and so about twice as many people come to first service as they do second service. Either service, we don't have a capacity crowd. The foresight that they built this room with was great, and so this room has a lot of capacity, a lot more capacity than we have Sunday school space. 77% of our worship attendants typically attend Sunday school, which they tell us is a great statistical number compared to most churches, and almost all of our Sunday school rooms are used every Sunday, and they're pretty full in some cases. Our master plan has 4 different things that we were looking for. Multi-general focus. They tell us our church is quite unusual in that we care for people from baby, from birth, all the way through mature adults. That range, we focus on all that. They tell us that's an unusual characteristic. A lot of churches only focus on one age group. That's not First Baptist. Balanced capacity, I mentioned we're trying to build this for 2 worship services. How many people can we handle in here versus how many auxiliary facilities we have for worship, for discipleship and education and all the things that go on. Best land utilization, we don't have a lot of it, but we are blessed to have what we have. Some people several years ago had the foresight to buy the property right back here behind us. There was an old house there in the parking lot area where we built a new parking lot. By the way, it was open this morning. I hope some of you got to park on a nice new pavement. It's not done. There's still more work to do there. But anyway, the church is limited on property, so when we're talking about 50 years, we're trying to make sure that we do this as effectively as we can with the footprint. And minimum disruption. If we do some things, it's going to disrupt, and so we want to, church has to go on, Sunday school has to go on, Wednesday nights have to go on, so we want to do our absolute best to keep the distraction and disruptions at a minimum. The 2025 Master Block campaign is what we're trying to accomplish is everything that we're talking about with new facilities would be down this way on Gunner. So you can see that in the pink block there that I have highlighted. There would also be a new connector system at some point in time that would come and allow us balcony access from that direction as well as this direction, and sanctuary access to the corridor that's around from both sides, and allow people to get through. In the beginning phases, it may only be a sidewalk that gets us from the new facilities to this side of the building or through the other places, because the connectors are a tough thing to do. So you see that we've got kind of a connector drawn there. There's another connector in this picture to through the big educational room upstairs, the children's church room and the worship room. The biggest room we have upstairs is where the second connector would come through. And so that makes it difficult, and all these connections to the buildings are expensive, and so we will work on that to do the best we can. But basically, down Gunner, we're talking about a possible 3-phase building plan. It could happen in 2, it could happen in 1, depending on the generosity of the people. Anchored Adventures Playground, a basketball court that the youth have up there, some other fun things for children and our youth to do out that way, and then you see additional parking. Even though we've added parking out here, if the church grows, we will have a parking problem at some time in the future, so we are trying to plan even more parking there that could help us sustain. So Gunner Avenue's out here, the building would be down this way. It would be up on the hill. It would not be ground level compared to this building. It would be ground level compared to the second building, but a second story on top. These drawings are just concepts, and the budgets are estimates, and so we're trying to make sure that we let you know that there's a big map out here preschool program we have, which is phenomenal, and keep it going with about 82 kids, I believe, or 85 is how many come here 5 days a week on that half-day preschool program. Again, this building would be a one-story building, but it could possibly have a rooftop terrace on top of it for youth activities to expand outside the traditional built-in walls. And so they would possibly have some extra space up there for special events, overflow crowds, outdoor concert events, or whatever they needed as we build that on top. Another $5.2 million block here, so ABC, or we're all averaging them out at $5.2 million apiece, and so that's where we come up with that one. So if we did all A, B, and C, you'll see how it kind of would stack up there. So you've got the children's worship on bottom, you've got the youth worship on top, you'd have anchored adventures at the end, we'd have the basketball courts, all the things out there as I showed you in the original plan, and everybody would be happy, have their own dedicated space, and that would allow them to have also secure space. Church security is a high topic amongst parents these days. We all know what goes on in the world with just bad things that happen. So dividing all these age groups up, having their own security and access, parental controls, all the security things to keep our people safe and secure during Sunday and Monday through Friday anchored adventures thing is part of the thought process behind all this. Is keeping the groups together, age groups together for appropriate furniture, fixtures, and all the things that they need. And so that's what the focus is of all those buildings through there. On the existing building, there are some things and projects that the architects have identified that might could help us to do some more things. And part of that is I'm on the lower level right here now. Starting in the purple box up there, this is the front section of the church all the way through the drive-through area. We would like to do an extra classroom starting on the far end, an expanded fellowship and gathering lobby. Our church doesn't have a lot of gathering spaces. Sometimes out here you'll get run over trying to get to Sunday school or trying to talk to somebody about whatever you're wanting to talk to them about. You'll get run over by the mass going out through there. So we're trying to build some gathering spaces and some expanded lobbies that they say is very important in church life today. It also would have new ramps, new steps to make it better. That ramp up there is long and sloped, and we have a great senior adult and mature adult ministry, and so a lot of our people have trouble on some of those big ramps. Even when you get upstairs, there's stairs and slope ramps to get to other levels. So it's not, this is a very, very multi-level building, and so we're trying to rework that whole front there to allow for that. You see we've got 3 adult Sunday school classes down there in the space where the offices are currently, and so you'll see in the next slide where we're talking about moving with the offices. But the preschool area would basically stay where it's at, maybe have an extra class or 2. Nursery would be where it's at, choir room stays where it's at, and then all that. The pink circle shows an expanded fellowship hall. We're talking about 2 extra bays in the fellowship hall. Those laminated beams are about 15 feet apart. And so we're talking about the possibility of adding 30 extra feet to the fellowship hall at some point in time. We would expand and build a more usable kitchen for the ladies that prepare our Wednesday night meals and when we have special events and everything on that. And as I mentioned, the connector in the blue square on the right-hand side of your screen, the connectors over to the building to allow access into here. There would also be, there's a stairwell over here by the music suite, and so people could come in and access all those things through an interior corridor is what we would hope for. Yes, this is the second floor, or the upper level. On the blue box on the far left-hand side, you would see that that's where the office area would move to. We would expand the building in a way that would be kind of think about this. The roof on that building facing this way is like this. It's a pitch gable roof, and so the architects have came up with the idea of some of the most usable space we could possibly have would be to take that roof off and raise those up, not on the fellowship hall, but on those end rooms, and so the building would then have a ceiling that looks like this, and so rather than having the pitch that gets the slopes on the inside, it would open that up and would allow more space, and so the offices would be on that end of the hall, and so all that's good. You'd see the lobby, expanded gathering lobby down below, and then we would get some rework on the roof of where Mike Reeves' Sunday school class is. probably can't read this because it's a bunch of small print, but this is going to cost, as Joel said, it's a lot of money, and so we're going to try to cover it the absolute best way that we can. So the pre-work that you have is engineering fees, architectural fees, and all those things. Those would come first. We have to design. All the things that you see here are just master plan footprints. We would hire Chapman Sisson at a rate of about 6.5% of what the construction costs run for all of that. We would hire them to take whatever building design that we come up with, or the footprint that we come up with, and say, hey, this is what we're going to try to build, and the money that we've got to do that, and we would pay them in order to do that. There's also acoustical engineering, rendering, civil engineering, topographical and geographic. There was a house up there. We'll have to do a lot of work in order to find out what is underneath the ground and how we can pull that off. The site work and everything, it's pretty hilly land, just like we did on the parking lot. That project ran more expensive than we initially thought it would. Part of it is because we actually had to haul dirt off, bad dirt off, and some new dirt in, I believe, to get the parking lot built, just because you've got to have a solid foundation, not built on sand, right, Joel? And so that's part of that money that's in there. Somewhere in the neighborhood of, if we did it all, it might be as much as close to $700,000 to $800,000 worth of site work out there to build the full scope of buildings. So we've talked about each building at $5.2 million a piece. That comes out to a total of about $15,523,327. That number's so big I can't even hardly say it. But so as Joel said, we're not here to scare you, but it is what it is. That's the cost of building today. Once we get that building done, you would also have some other things like inspections, landscaping and irrigation. We'd have audio and visual equipment, all these Sunday school classes. We're beginning to see more screens and things in classes to be able to do that properly. Security and access control, furnishings and equipment, again, each age group in the early years, so from nursery all the way through youth, not youth, but through children, grade school children, 6th grade, most of those are in smaller chairs, or they have restrooms inside the classroom so that they can, the workers have access to facilities and things of that nature. All that costs money, and we have added in some project cost contingencies of 10%, and then we also have added in some construction inflation. And so again, if you add all of that together, and that on the new buildings, $15,523,000. If we add on work for all of the existing buildings, nobody's even gave us a quote on that. They just said, oh, well, it's so complicated. We don't know exactly what all's going on. But if we had a guess, we would throw out a $4 million number. So you add that $4 million to the $15,523,000, and you come up with a project, total master plan project of $19,523,327. If you like to round up, just call it a smooth twinkle. That's all I know to say. And so somewhere between $5.2 million and $20 million is our highlight goal of where we're headed. And so to actually do something that would be meaningful to our church as we try to look to the future. Aggressive timeline. If we were to reach the goal, and we'll be talking about a starting goal of $5.2 million, we hope to raise a lot more than that. But if we were to reach the goal in November, when we do, on November the 9th, when the contributions and the pledges come in, if we see a way forward with any phase of building A through C or whatever the church does, and we approve in business meetings and conferences, then December 25 through March of 26 would be surveys, civil engineering tests. At December 25, architects would start doing the floor plans, the elevations, all of the things that can go on with the building. We'd select a contractor to do a design build process. So the contractor would be working with us in lockstep as we design and do budgeting and all the costing on the building. The architects would work with us on that, and they would take care of that load. We won't be doing that ourselves. Like I said, they will be involved in helping us manage the project all the way through. The architects will. September 2026 is the earliest they could foresee a groundbreaking, and that's if church has had a history of supporting projects like this, and I'd like to just click on a few and show you a couple. Joel mentioned a few, and I'd just like to re-emphasize these, that these numbers obviously are not as big as what we're dealing with now, but in 1989, the church added on built the fellowship and kitchen area and carport and educational space for $936,000, and that was paid off. In 1989, the church burned. The price tag at that time was $3.2 million, and we did not have the money. The insurance did not cover the entire cost of that, so the church was burdened with about $850,000. So in 2007, let me rewind. That $850,000 was paid off. And in 2005 and 2006, we started planning for 2012. We restructured the children's and nursery area, which is existing now, and that was a not to exceed number of $1,668,000. Approximately the same time, the Episcopal Church property came available for sale, and that was at a cost of $300,000. Out of the generosity of the church, it gave, and we still had to borrow, even though we still borrowed $1,200,000. And then in 2012, the Smith property, just south of here, became available, and so we purchased it, just the geographic location. And I think Wendell and Joel have both mentioned that the two lots where the current parking lot that's being constructed now were both purchased by families in this church and then donated to the church out of the generosity of their hearts. So I have just seen this displayed over and over, the generosity of this congregation and church family. In February of 2013, we blended some debt together, the acquisition of the property, and that loan amount was $1,712,000, and it was at 4.15% interest rate with a balloon payment due in 2028. In 2017, the financial leadership of the church got together to recognize that we didn't have the money to make the balloon payment, and started considering ways to pay that down. And then, so in 2018, we started Vision 2020, which was to pay that debt off. And that debt at the time when we started that campaign was $1,218,000. And through God's blessing and the generosity again of this church, that was paid off in September 23rd of 2021. Since that time, we've been out of debt, and we've been able to create, made a focused effort on building up a cash reserve so that we could pay for any unforeseen contingencies that come up in the church. We have existing about 30,000 square feet, and as everyone knows, things break at times, and so to have that money available has been a blessing, and we've not had to come to the church to burden them with small matters and things that have been breaking, such as air conditioning units. And since we've been trying to save that money, I'm happy to report that we've been able to save over 4 months in operating cash in a contingency fund. So the long-range planning committee has established a target, Linda just stated, and the long-range planning committee mentioned that the youth facility is the most pressing need that we have currently, and that number is $5.2 million, and
closing, I just want to mention that every penny that does come to the church today and will come through this campaign is treated with utmost confidentiality. No one will know what anyone gives. We have a church staff accountant. Her name is Amy Fonder, and she will be dealing with those offerings. And so I just want everyone to know that when we get into money and it becomes delicate, I just want you to know that you can trust this church for confidentiality. So I just want to request that the entire effort be prayed over individually and collectively by each one of you guys, and pray that the Lord will lead you in the decisions that you have to make. I'd just like to say before I close it, this church has been family to me, and I don't have much family left. My father-in-law's here this morning, and Joel's allowed me to grow up in this church, and he's known me when I was real young, and now I got some gray hair, but it's been a blessing to start here, grow up here, and just be part of this family, church family. So I'm thankful for that, and the generosity that you showed over the years has built and encouraged my faith. And when I see the blessings that you guys freely give and how much you love this church, and as Linda said, I don't have children here anymore. They're all gone and grown up. I have one here this morning, but we're building for, this project is for the children that are sitting here that are maybe not even born. And so this is a 20, 30 month plan that we hope that you guys will catch a vision of. And I'm just thankful to be part of a church that wants to grow. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Miss Kathy Reed. We saved the best for last. So Miss Kathy Reed will clean up. And for sure.
I was born and raised in this church a bunch of years ago, and I've been here since I was born. I was baptized here, not here, but what used to be here, and went to youth activities here in a house. I'm bad at directions. Right over here on the parking lot where the fellowship hall is now, that was our youth house when we were growing up. And then, when I was 18, we had my dad's funeral here. When I went to Auburn, and then Mike and I got married in, not this sanctuary, but the old sanctuary. And we had our reception in Mr. Ken's music suite. And let me tell you, it was lovely. It's a little different from the receptions that people have now, but it was still great. But it was right in there. See memories there. And then we raised our kids, Will and Meg here. Taking them to the nursery was a little scary back then. It was very dark and very dated and extremely small, and I remember it being having space heaters everywhere in the winter. And as a mom, I was a little scared of that, but we've come a long way. Our couple Sunday school class met in a house next to the youth house out there, and there was no room in the main building for us. So Julian's mom and Bill Collins were teachers then, and some wise people. Most of them are in heaven now, but they had a vision for what we needed for the future of our church. And so, God, we built the fellowship hall part of the church, the drive-through part, and more classroom space. And God started filling it up. Then we were devastated when our sanctuary, that held so many memories for so many of us, burned to the ground in 1999. And here are some of my favorite words. But God. and then but God again. And a little bit of Whitney Maston and Sally Campbell too. I was on the children's committee when Michelle Johns, who had started Anchored Adventures, decided she was going to take a full-time job and she was going to start her family. We interviewed a lot of people for the job of the director of Anchored Adventures, and no one seemed to be just the right fit. And then I began to think, I heard God say, you need to do this for me. And so, for the last 6 years, I've been the director of our church's Anchored Adventures preschool program. And by the way, it's the best job I've ever had. Best job ever. We now have 80 plus precious children and families and 20 teachers. And we are full. We are full. No rooms to grow into. I have a wait list for this year just in case somebody drops off. I have a wait list for next year already started. We even every year have children on our wait list who have not even been born yet. All that to say, the young families in our area want to send their kids to a place where they are loved and where Jesus is the main thing. And then many times what's so exciting for us is these families decide this is the church where they need to be. Their kids are happy in the nursery. They know people already, and so they come here too. I also help with the preschool choir because who can say no to Mr. Ken? And that, with Anchored Adventures, has allowed me to get to know and love the new young families that are coming to join us here at First Baptist Church. Y'all, they are excited about growing and learning. They're showing up for all kinds of things and bringing their kids to children's ministry happenings. They're volunteering in something that all our church has to offer. We are growing with wonderful new life. They are all so much wiser and more mature than I was when I was their age. But we are running out of room. Young couples classes are full. Our children's area is filling up, and many babies are on the way. We know that Warren and Heather are packing youth into a space that's too small and too old. As I said before, our Anchored Adventures rooms are full with no room to grow. We need easy access for rooms for senior adults. Every Sunday, those stairs get a little harder to climb. And not that I'm ready to admit that I'm a senior adult, but I fit the criteria very well. So I ask you today to pray about what part you will play in the next endeavor, the next phase of growth and generosity. It seems like a lot to tackle. All that we just saw seems like a lot to tackle. But God, He has a plan for us. Plans to prosper us and not harm us. Plans to give us hope and a future. Thank you.
So there you go. A big plan, big vision. It's going to take a lot of faith. Building by it's going to take all the purpose, all the vision, all the generosity that we can muster. And so we hope that you have, through this presentation, have learned more about what we're talking about. It doesn't answer all the questions we know. We don't have time for a question and answer session today. But starting in a few days, you will have we will have on Wednesday nights. We will have a time after the fellowship meal or after Joel's presentation in here. We'll be meeting, setting up spaces to meet and answer questions that may come to your mind. There's also a QR code for questions. It's out on the Old Lord's Supper table. You may see it around. You may have gotten it in an email. We're trying to communicate with you through email. So if you're not checking your church email or not on the church email list, make sure that you get involved in that because that's how we're trying to communicate a lot of information. But there is a QR code, and it may be in the pews in front of you. I don't know, but you punch that. It'll take you to a little thing to where you can type in your question. But if you want to do it in person with one of us that's on the committee, we will, like I said, on Wednesday nights, probably not this Wednesday night, we're starting in some future Wednesday nights. We'll be coming around to Sunday school classrooms, and different people on the staff, the team, capital campaign team, directors, will be coming. By the QR code for the devotional guide. So we're asking you to do one prayer a day at least, and then one devotional a day, and that QR code takes you through the 21 days of devotional that Paul and his staff pulled together. And so you've got a prayer guide, you have a devotional guide. You also, in this swag bag, are going to get some little reminders. I think there's a cross and a dog tag thing. If you need a physical reminder to remind you to be on this 21-day journey, they have provided that, so that's part of your swag bag. And inside there is a commitment card that Paul has asked that we have as many people sign the commitment card as you can. There's some here on the front row. If you want to come down and sign a commitment card, leave it on the front row today. Otherwise, you can take yours out of your bag and bring it back tonight. We'll be having the spiritual journey kickoff tonight at 6:30 with everything going on with all of the prayer meeting tonight for that. It'll be music, multi-generational choir. The full kids choir is going to sing tonight. So we ask you to come back tonight as we begin to bathe this project in prayer. And that's the first step as we move forward. So we are so thankful for you. We're so blessed to be members of this church. It's just a pleasure and been an honor to be able to work on this project, and we look forward to great things that are coming in the future. So, like I said, keep up with your church emails. We'll look forward to sharing more Joel's sermon series, and then we'll be able to answer questions. So with that, we'll conclude our presentation today, and I will ask Joel to dismiss us in prayer as we get ready for 10:30 worship.
All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for the day, for the blessing. Thank you for this opportunity we've had to present the vision that we have, that you've given to us, and looking forward to seeing how you're going to work in the life of this church family as we fulfill this vision that you've given to us, so that we can think about for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years even, about the youth ministry, the children's ministry, the senior adult ministry, just the ministries of Anchored Adventures, and just where are you guiding and leading us. So it's exciting, Father. And at the same time that it's exciting, it's overwhelming. And so, Father, just help us to say, okay, Lord, what's my role?